Daf Chaf Gimel Amid Aleph, 8 lines from the top. Continue on with the Machlokes Chizkiya and Ravavo. Lo yoichel, does that mashma in addition to Isra Achila, Isra Hanom, as Ravavo says. Chizkiya says that no, only when the Torah says Lo yoichel, but the Lashonos of Lo yoichel, Lo soichlu, etc., only imply Achila and not Hana. Frek the Gemara Varei Truma. Well, we have the case of Truma Drachmana Amar Mecholzar Lo Yoichal Kodesh. It says Azar, a non-Kohen, cannot eat the Kodesh. Utanan, we learned in the Mishnah Ma'arvim Lenazar B'yayin Ol Yisrael B'Truma. It says you can make an Eruv, you can make an Eruv for a Nazar with wine, and Yisrael with Truma. And with Yisrael you can make with Truma. So the issue on making an Eruv, you're making an Eruv, how can you make an Eruv with these things? A Nazir can't drink wine. A Yisrael cannot eat Truma. How can you make an Eruv with these types of things? So the basic idea is that they can be shoyal on it. The Nazir could be shoyal on his Naziras. The Yisrael could be shoyal on the designation of the Truma. So it's theoretically mutter. To make an Eruv, it has to be something that a person could eat, that we say that this is considered to be his makam. This is to be his place of dwelling. So these things theoretically could be eaten. But what do we see over here? We see over here that you're making an Eruv. You're making an Eruv with Truma. The Torah says, Lo yoichal. It says, Lo yoichal kodesh. You can't eat the Truma. And nevertheless, you can get benefit from it. Nevertheless, you can get benefit from it. You can use it for your Eruv. So don't you see that even though the Torah says Lo yoichal, it's only an Isra Achila, it's not an Isra Hana. Taisus points out that this is not going according to the Mandomar, that Ein Ma'arvin El Dvar Mitzvah, that we only allow an Eruv for Dvar Mitzvah and Mitzvah's Lav Lahenis Nitnu. Because according to that approach, if you can only make the Eruv, if we only allow this heter for an Eruv for a Dvar Mitzvah and Mitzvah's Lav Lahenis Nitnu, we don't see from here that you're getting any heter, any benefit from the Hana from it. It's not considered getting a Hana, Mitzvah's Lav Lahenis Nitnu. So we're not going according to that Mandan. So what do we see over here? We see that Yisrael is allowed to be Ma'arav with Truma. Even though the Torah says Lo yoichal, that means that it only implies an Isra Achila, not an Isra Hana. So it's a Kashan Ravavom Omar Papa Shiny Halsam Damar Kron Trumaschem. The Torah says Trumaschem Shalachem Tehei. It's considered to be yours. It says V'nechshav lachem Trumaschem Kedagan Min Hagayran. Trumaschem. So, as Rashi explains, now the pasuk of Nechshem Trumaschem, even though it's talking about Trumas Meiser, but Kedagan, I mean it says Kedagan Min Hagayran is talking about Truma, so therefore the Trumaschem, yours, is referring to Truma as well. So the Torah calls it Trumaschem, Shalachem Teh, it's considered yours. Therefore, even though Achila would normally imply an Isser Hana, but here the Torah says Shalachem Teh, it's considered to be yours. V'idach and Chizkiya, who says that no, that there wouldn't be an Isra Hana implied anyway, because it doesn't say Lo ye'achel, so why do we need this Trumaschem? According to Chizkiya, there's no Isra Hana implied anyway, so why do we need Trumaschem? So it can't be therefore to tell me that it's Mutter B'Hana, because I wouldn't have thought it's also B'Hana anyway. The Ve'idach Chizkiya says Trumaschem D'chol Yisrael Komer. It doesn't mean a hetra. No, it doesn't mean specifically you. It's a generic term. It's Trumaschem D'chol Yisrael, Truma of Klal Yisrael. Varei Nazir Frek is Gemara. Well, from the same case, from the case that we have by the Eruv, Varei Nazir, the Rachmana Amar Mechatzan V'adzag V'adzag Lo yoichel. The Torah says that the Nazir cannot eat Mechatzan V'adzag Lo yoichel, from the grape skins and the grape seeds he can't eat. It says Lo yoichel. And Utzanan Marvel and Nazir B'yayin. And like we just learned, Marvel and Nazir B'yayin, that the Nazir could use for his Eruv, he could use wine. Because theoretically, it could be accessible to him. He could eat it if he's shoyal on his zeros. But I'll call upon him. In the meantime, you see that he's getting benefit from this wine, and that it's mutter b'hana. He can use it for his eruv. So how is that according to Rav? Why should it be mutar b'hano? Amar Mar Sutra shayni halsam the Amar Kra nizroi shelo yehi. It says nizroi. The Torah says that it uses the lashon of kol yimei nizroi, his nazirus. So it uses the lashon of all the days of his nazirus, and therefore it's considered to be his, and therefore he can get hano from it. Ravashi gives a different source. The pasuk says Kodesh Yeh Gadol Perasar Roshan. It says that the nazirus, that his hair should be Kodesh. So we learned Kodesh means it's also Bano Gidulei Kodesh. The Gidul, the hair is Kodesh, Vein Davar Achar Kodesh. The hair is also Bano. The hair has to be cut and burnt Tatach Shlomim. So it's only the Gidul that's Kodesh, but not other things. Other things are not also Bahano. So therefore, the Yain is Motor Bahano. In fact, the Gemara Midi Vein Davar Achar Ksiv, it doesn't say anything else. So therefore, it's not, you don't see from here that a Nazir's the Yain is Mutar B'hano. Rather, that the answer is, the source is, as Mar Zutra says, because it says that Nizroi, Shaloi Yehi, that is Mutar B'hano. Another kasha to Rav of Arei Chodesh, the Isser of Chodesh. The Isser of Chodesh is that one cannot eat from the new grain until the makar of the Korban Omer on the 16th day of Nisan. That's one Isser. There's another Isser of Ketzira. One cannot harvest the new grain prior to the harvesting of the Omer. So one cannot eat from the new grain until the makar of the Korban Omer, and one cannot harvest, and that can't be Kaitzer either. So the Rahman Omer, the Rei Chodesh, the Rahman Omer, Lechem Koli, V'charma Loi Seichlu, Adetzam Yamazeh. The Torah says, Lashon V'loi Seichlu, so which, according to Ravo, it should be mashma that there's an Isser Hana, was none, and we learned in the Mishnah, Kaitzer L'Shachas, that one can harvest L'Shachas, Umachel L'Behem. One can be Kaitzer L'Shachas and feed to his animal. So the Isser of Ketzira, the Isser of harvesting prior to the Ketzira Sa'aymer, doesn't apply to Shachas. It doesn't apply to Shachas, to the grain that's not fully grown, that grain that's not fully grown, that's sometimes fed to animals. This Shachas, there's no Isser of Ketzira. The Isser of Ketzira does not apply to it. So therefore, one din is, you can be Kaitzer to L'Shachas even prior to the Ketzira Sa'aymer. The second din is Umachel L'Behem. You can feed the grain to the animal. Now, the way Rashi is learning it, it's not talking about shachas. This component over here is not talking about shachas because there's no isser of achila on shachas. There's no isser ksira or an isser of achila. This umachal behem is talking about fully grown crops. If you have crops that are fully grown, there's an isser on eating the fully grown crops. There's an issue of eating it prior to the Omer, it's Chodesh. Nevertheless, you can pluck it and give it to your animal. You can feed it to your animal. So what do we see from over here? That even the Torah, though the Torah says, Lo Seichlo, don't eat it, which according to Ravo should mean that there's also an Isra Hana, you can take this, pluck it, because you can't be Kaitzer, but you can feed it to your animal. So you see that there's an Isser of Achila and not an Isser of Hano. That's the way Rashi learns the Taisa. Rabbeinu Peretz learns that no, it's talking about its continuation. It's Kaisar L'Shachas Umachal L'Behema. That the Isser of Shachas, that there is an Isser of Achila on Shachas. There's only a heter of Ketzira, but there's no heter of Achila. So therefore, that it says Kaisar L'Shachas, and the Shachas you can be Machal to the Behema. Al Kol Panim, what we see over here clearly, though, that even though when something that there is an Isser Achila of Chodesh, whether it's fully grown or whether it's Shachas, but there's an Isser of Achila of Chodesh, it's only Achila, and there's no Isser Hano. So Zakashan Ravavo Amar of Shmaya Shiny Halsam the Amar Kra Ktsirchem Shalachem Yeh. The Torah says Ktsirchem Vavesem Es Omer Reshis Ktsirchem Elakayin. Now it doesn't have to say Ktsirchem. Ktsirchem shows you that it belongs to you. So that shows you, that teaches you the heter hano here. Normally it would be also, but here there's a heter. According to Chizkiah, well, why I don't need a heter hano? It doesn't say lo ye'achel, so it's not also to begin with. Similar to what we said before, kitzir kitzirchem d'chol Yisrael mashma. It's a generic term that it's talking to Gans Klal Yisrael, and it doesn't mean to specifically make it muter b'hano. When we have the Isser of Shrotzim, of eating Shrotzim, the Rahman Omer Sheketsu Lo Ye'achel. Now here it says Lo Ye'achel, which both, according to Chesken Robo, Bimashma and Isser Hano. Usan, and we learned in the Mishnah, Tzayad Chayev Ayves V'Dogim, the hunters who trap, whether it's chayas, wild animals, or birds, or dogim, or fish, shenistamlu minim tameim, where when they were hunted, they happened to find minim which are tome, that they trapped minim which are tome. Mutar l'machram l'nachrim, you are allowed to sell it to a nachri, so you're allowed to get hana from it. So you see that even though the Torah says lo ye'achel, it's not only that it's only rather also ba'achila, but it's not also b'hana. So l'cheretz akashan both Ravavo and Chizkiah, because according to both of them, it should be also b'hana. In fact, the Rosh Yosef, well, that pasuk is by Shrotzim. Here we're talking about chayav ayivs v'dogim. So what's the kasha? What's the kasha? Yes, maybe I'll tell you Shrotzim are also b'hana. This heter, this mutter, is by birds, by dogim. So he says, no, we have a hekesh between the two. They're compared one to the other, and we're makish the two together, and therefore, whatever is mutter or also by one is by the other as well. So they're all included in these macholos asuris, and therefore we have this hekesh, and therefore we should say that it's also b'hana. More answer, shiny hosam damar kol lachem shalachem yeh. Again, it says shalachem, it's yours, and therefore it says it specifically and explicitly gives a heter of it for a heter hana. Now here also, even though this pasuk is written l'gabe dogim by fish and not l'gabe shrotzim, but as the Rosh Hashanah said, there's a hekesh between the two, so the heter applies similarly to shrotzim. Frek the Gemara, if that's the case, well then, why is it only b'di'evet? If he happened to be hunting, he's trapping, and he's trying to hunt kosher, oifes, dogim, or chayas, and it happens to be that there was minim, that there were the minim tmeim that got trapped as well. Well, if there's a heter hana, l'chadchila he should be able to hunt and trap minim which are tmeim. Why is it only if it happened, if it's b'di'evet? Why should we say it in that way? It should be mutter l'chadchila. Now, Pashup Pshat is that you would say that it would seem to be that, well, if it's mutter l'chadchila, that why is it b'di'evet? Mehechatei said that it should be only b'di'evet. But in a deeper way, Rabbeinu Peretz says that the kasha is as follows. Perhaps you could say that this is a d'Rabbanan. It's a din d'Rabbanan that l'chadchila you shouldn't trap it. Why? Perhaps because you might come to eat it, etc. But the way he explains it is that no, since the Torah specifically says that it's yours, it's mutter to you, then even the Rabbanan, we wouldn't say that the Rabbanan would answer. The Torah explicitly says, lachem, shalachem, yeah, that it's mutter for you. So why is there this iser l'chadchila? More answers, shiny hacha, damar kra yiyu. It says yiyu, mahav yosan yehu. They should remain in their status, meaning that they're considered to be tmeim. They should remain in that status. And the Torah says that yiyu. So therefore, how do we understand it? We understand it as follows. It is shalachem, but it is yiyu. Therefore, l'chadchila, that should be tomei. That should be tomei and they should not be able to have any hana from it. But it also says lachem that b'di'evet it's muter b'hana. So we're mekayim both of them. that it remains in its status and is made to consider it to be something that's Tomei, and it's considered to be something that's a sheketz. That it's considered to be that it's a sheketz, and it's considered to be that something that you should not get any hana from. But it's also lachem b'di'evet. So if he's going to hunt kosher minim, and it happens to be that there's a tomei min that's tomei, it's muter b'hana. So some Rishonim learned that this is a deraisa d'kelachatchila. It's something that's unusual. We normally don't find this. That this is a deraisa d'kelachatchila. That lechatchila, that it's also midaraisa. B'di'evet it's muter. So we have something that a case that it's also lechatchila midaraisa. Other Rishonim learn that no, that this is a Rabbanan discussion. That since the Torah says you, Batzim is muter b'hana. The Rabbanan were geyser that you should not lechatchila go and hunt it because it's considered to be something that is a sheketz and it's tomei, and it should remain in that status. According to Chizkiah, why should the Torah write lo yach and then require lo yachal to tell me it's muter b'hana? Lo yilichtav rachman lo yachal v'lo boy lachem. Don't write lo yachal and you don't need lachem. Now, according to Ravo, it's not a kasha. There's no alternative because any lashon of achila would imply an isra hana, so you don't have an alternative. But according to Chizkiah, you do. Why say lo yachal, which implies an isra hana, and then you require a lachem to say it's muter b'hana? Don't use a lashon lo yachal. Use a lashon of lo yochal or something of that nature, which does not imply an isra hana, and then you don't need the lachem to be matri. Why go out of our way to write a lashon which implies an isra hana and then require an extra word to be matri? Amar la Chizkiah answers, time of the day, he says, this is my source. This is the source that lo yachal is isra hana. The Torah had to teach us this way. It says lo yachal, which implies isra hana, and the lachem to be matri to teach us that lo yachal means isra hana. Now, once the Torah said this over here, in other places, we would not say a lo yachal and then require another drasha to be matr by now. The Torah would say lo yachal. But the Torah at this place, at one place in the Torah had to teach us that lo yachal is not only eating, it means hana as well. That's why it teaches us over here lo yachal, which implies iser, and lachem to be matr. So what is the case of chometz on Pesach? The Rahman Omar lo ye'achel chometz. It says lo ye'achel. The time we learned in a brisa, Rabbi Yosef Galili Omer, he says, Tamal asmacha, wonder, you should wonder, hey, chometz also ba'ano kol shiva, that chometz is not also ba'ano kol shiva, meaning they have a machlekes and chometz shavar lava Pesach, is it also or not, that Rabbi Yehuda says it's also. Rabbi Yosef says not only not also chometz shavar la Pesach, even chometz on Pesach is not also b'hana. It's muter. Chometz is muter b'hana. It's only also b'achila. So what do you see over there? You see over there that it says lo ye'achel. It says lo ye'achel, and therefore, according to both Chizkiah and Ravo, it should be also b'hana. And you see that Rabbi Yosef Galili says it's muter b'hana. It's a kash on both. More answer, shiny awesome. That's different. Damar kro lo yera lecha sor. It says lecha lo yera lecha sor shalacha yehei. The lecha teaches you that it belongs to you. So therefore, we have a special heter to teach you that it's muter. Says, well, according to Chizkiah, why say lo ye'achal and lecha to be mater? Similar to kasha we had before. Don't say lo ye'achal, and therefore don't say lo ye'achal, say lo ye'achal, and therefore it would not imply an isra hana. Why do you need both? So Taisus doesn't answer, he bleibt schwer. Other Meforshim Dibran and others learn that in Chanami, Rabbi Yosef Galili could not go with the shita of Chizkiah, and he does not go with it, and therefore this is only going according to Ravo. And in Chanami, according to Chizkiah, Rabbi Yosef Galili does not stem with Chizkiah, so this is only going according to Ravo. So therefore, that's what Rabbi Yosef Galili holds. The lo ye'achal is also, but the lecha is material. Now, That's Rav Yosef Galili. The Rabbanon who argue with Rav Yosef Galili say that Chometz is also Rabbanon. What do they do with the Lecha? They darshan Shalacha Yata Raya. To teach you that the Isser, the Bal by Matzah, is only on Chometz that's yours. But Chometz of Nochrim or Shel Gavaya, even if they're in your Rishus, you're not over Bal Matzah. V'ida Rav Yosef Galili, how does he know that then? Trei L'cha Ksiv. It says L'cha in two places. It says V'lo Yera L'cha Chometz, V'lo Yera L'cha Sor. So there's two L'chas. One is a Hetra and Noah, and the other one is to teach me Nochri and Hektish. V'ida on the Rabbanan, what do they say to that? They said, yes, but you need two. V'chad ben Nochri shekivashta, v'chad ben Nochri shelo kivashta. I need two lachos for a Nochri, one where he is under your dominion, where you have control over him, and one where you don't. So therefore I need both of them. V'yidach Rav Yosef Galili says, Tlos halacha ksivi. He says that, yes, but there's a third pasuk. It says, V'lo yera l'cha sor b'chol gvulcha shivas yomim. So there's a third pasuk, and that will teach you the Hetra. V'idach and the Rabbanan who argue with Rav Yosef Galili say, no, I don't have an extra l'cha to teach me Hetra, because I need the three of them. Chad b'sor v'chad b'chometz v'tzricha. I need the Hetra of l'cha, that yours is also the Bal Yera Bal Yamatz applies to you, but not by Hektish, not a Nochri. But it also has to teach me, also it applies to Seor and Chometz. So I need Echad b'Nochri shekivashta, v'Echad b'Nochri shelo kivashta. And I need the extra one to tell me that the heter applies whether it's Chometz or whether it's Seor. Chometz doesn't have the same strength as Seor. Seor is used, it's not only Chometz, it's very strong. It's used as a catalyst, an agent to make other things Chometz. But in itself is not edible. So it is very strong, but it's not edible. Chometz is not machmetz other things. It's not as strong, but it is edible. So there's a svara either way to say that, well, perhaps there's a heter for a nochri, for bal yera bal yamatza, maybe it's by sor, not by chometz, maybe chometz, not by sor. So it has to teach us that the heter, the isser of bal yera bal yamatza is only yours, but not by a nochri, not by hektish, not by anochri, whether it's kivashta or like kivashta, and not by chometz, not by sor. So I don't have an extra lecha to teach me a heter on no.